the mission of the club is to create forums and events to help its members improve their professional competencies, thereby raising the standards of advertising in the state. Since more than a decade now, it has been conducting fruitful sessions and taking effective initiatives for the benefit of marketing communication fraternity. Interestingly, in 2021, we introduced our flagship event, Brandfest Season 1, followed by Season 2, 3, and 4, respectively. We received a very overwhelming response across industry to this initiative. We had veterans of the industry as our esteemed speakers. If I need to name a few, Mr. Gopal Krishnan, former executive director of Tata Sons, Sam Balsara, chairman medicine. Then we had Harish Bhatt, brand custodian Tata Sons, Ms. Manisha Kapoor, who has been the Secretary General for ASCI. We had Mr. Ajay Chaudhary, co-founder of HCL, and Mr. Jayan Mehta, our own from Amul, managing director Amul. So the virtual nature of these events had helped us to reach larger audience across the country and abroad, and also help enhance the participation learning of the business, marketing, and advertising fraternity at large. This initiative has been always supported by our esteemed Ahmedabad Management Association, which is a brainchild of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, and we have been very fortunate to be associated with them, and they have always given their support. Motivated by the splendid success of last 4 seasons, we are all set to have this 5th edition of Brandfest 5 on today and tomorrow. And tomorrow we have the Business and Brand Quiz in physical mode at Ahmedabad Management Association at the campus. This year, Brandfest Season 5 have 5 power-packed virtual sessions to be addressed by Binaifer Dulani, who is an award-winning creative leader, speaker and coach, and founder, partner, and creative at Talented. We had Jolene Fernandez Solanki, who is CEO of Medicine Media, Mr. Nand Kishore Chaudhary, who is the founder of Jaipur Rugs. We have Yug Shatra, who is founder and producer of Boot House Media, who's going to speak about AI and ad films. And then we have our most popular Jay Dhadeshwar, founder and CEO, who is the leading podcaster of Gujarat, entrepreneur investor, to speak on this forum. With the motive of contributing to the industry and the society, the fest is free and open to join for all. Having the stalwarts and the iconic speaker from domain shall immensely add to our professional journey, hence request you to make the most of it. So to start the first session, we have Ritam with us. Ritam is a very close friend of mine and also the founder of IFP, and with a lot of IPs in his bag. I would like Ritam to take further.
Thank you so much, sir. Hi, Binaifer. Hello, everyone. My pleasure that this morning we are doing something very interesting. If I was a kid studying in my MBA days, this would have been something I would have jumped out of my bed to join. And before kind of Binaifer begins, and I'm aware about what she's going to talk, and it sounds very interesting. I've just sent a Slack to my entire team to kind of join across. But to introduce you, while I was going through your profile, Binaifer, I kind of found you to be a person of contradictions. You are an introvert, but you've also spoken about how you perform in pitches where you have gone out, and the exact words that you have kind of used at some places include barking, rapping, doing celebrity impressions. And very few people in advertising who kind of have this kind of contradiction. And this is just one of them. You have been an award-winning creative leader. And more than that, I think the website says that you guys are obsessed with sleep. It says, do great work, get great sleep. So the award-winning part, someone who's working in advertising and having a great sleep part, somewhere again contradicts. And I think that's a beautiful metaphor of what you've been trying to put across. You've been a founder who also talks more about the talent than herself. And one of the lines on your website that I really liked was, it said, well-rested, fairly paid people. And this coming from a founder is again a very big contradiction to kind of, not a very big contradiction. It's a very rare thing to kind of hear so vocally be said. One of the most advertising's most influential women, if I have to put across, and a lot of my friends who work at Talented, so I've heard a lot of things about you as well from them. And I think one of the things that a lot of people here would kind of might resonate really well is that Binaifer has kind of told multiple times across interviews that she comes from a family where, being the youngest, she was always given a seat. And I think that is what reflects in your leadership quality. And today's title, when I was going through it, I kind of figured out that it has a lot more personal, and the way I think you have been also making the agency, there is a lot more human element to it, because you've kind of always felt that people should get an equal opportunity, which is also a contradiction of how typically advertising gets seen. Also, a creative superstar who kind of spends a lot of her time in making people succeed. And again, from a point of view that advertising usually requires a lot of exhaustion, a lot of hustle, and you have been doing something exactly opposite of that. If I have to kind of go through your internet introduction, it would be someone who's a South Asia Creative Leader of the Year by Campaign India 2024, Impact Magazine's 50 Most Influential Women. I think those are some of the really, I would say, jewels to your work. But more importantly, what you've done with Tanish, what you've done with Urban Company, Britannia ad that people would have seen, the Unfiltered History ad that people would have kind of seen, and the number of pans that it has got home. I think that kind of puts across the influence that you bring to the entire advertising economy in India. Today's topic is something which is called rethinking ambition, resilience, and creative longevity in advertising. Again, there's a contradiction in it, because in advertising, ambition means climbing faster, resilience means surviving pressure, all of us working extra hustle. Success means winning big awards, big clients, and longevity means somehow not burning out while doing all of the above. And now you're talking today about rethinking, which is going to be something very interesting for a lot of young agency mates who have joined here from Ahmedabad. So, Binaifer, over to you. I think what I am expecting after this entire session is a very different thought process of everyone who's working in this young field. And if I have to kind of put it in short, this session is really about one question: how do you build a creative career that doesn't just succeed but kind of lasts longer? So, yes, Binaifer, over to you for the next.
Thank you so much, Ritam. That was such a wonderful and generous introduction. You've really gone above and beyond to scour through a lot more than what I had shared to sort of put that through. It's absolutely true. I have been an introvert most of my career, and the role of a promoter was a role that had to be enacted and played. So that's just like the persona, the public persona that you put on. As we sort of kick this off, Shagun, Harsh, Varun, Dev. I'm just reading a lot of names who are like on my screen right now. Shreya, I'd love for more folks to be video on. The only way we get the most out of it is if we can like make this a little bit of a conversation than just my monologue. Thanks, Varun. Excellent. Very, very good to see your face. Thank you, Shreya. Again, wonderful. Meet, Harsh, Dev. I'd love to see your videos on Ravi, Siddhi, Madhu. Wonderful. Okay, it's great to see faces. I would love for you to go to unmute yourselves and speak up at any point of time. If there's anything that I'm saying that you would want a clarification, interrupt me. Ritam, I just want to do a time check. How much time do we have with each other?
We have an hour. Yeah. So
We have an hour.
45 minutes, and then last 15 minutes for
Got
Q&A.
it. So we'll keep about I'd love to hear more about like what is the most present things on each of your minds. So we'll wrap the talk and get into that, but we will be able to make the most of the morning you're spending listening into speakers and the industry if you can actually be engaged. Final call, Harsh, Amelia, Sahaj, Jaimit, Vicky, Dave. I'd love to see you all video on. Wonderful. With this, we're going to kick it off. I myself have spent more than a year in Ahmedabad at MICA. So Gujarat has a very, very special place in my heart. I am a huge fan of the food. I'm a bigger fan of the general zest for life if you come from Gujarat. So absolutely wonderful to be able to do this. I am going to be sharing a deck. And even as we sort of go over the deck and talk about this, I'm going to talk about a feeling that each one of us goes through if we are a creative person. I'm using the word creative in a slightly loose sense. You could be an agency owner, you could be a creative on the floor. Maybe you're someone who's part of the servicing or strategy function. Maybe you're a generalist or a freelancer, or you don't know, but you feel like advertising and marketing, being on the brand end, is going to be what you end up doing with your life. Here's something I want to say. I think a very inescapable part of being a creative person, especially a person who deals with ideas for a fair part of their life, ends up being this feeling of cringe that you go through. And I'll tell you what I mean when I talk about this feeling of cringe, right? It almost lurks in the background for anyone who uses their creativity for a commercial purpose. If you're a designer, you're a writer, you're an agency owner, we've all seen it. Have you seen a brilliant designer or brilliant writer, brilliant agency owner? They always downplay their work. They'll always say that, oh, this is okay. Ye to kuch bhi nahi hai. Or a very talented creative who will just avoid self promotion at all costs. I get it. This is a very real discomfort. Is that something you guys resonate with? Just sharing your work very, very publicly, putting yourselves out there every opportunity you get. I need to get some feedback. Vedang, is this something you go through?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So if this is something that you generally, if it's a feeling that you sort of go through, it actually comes from a place of where we are right now. And I feel this tweet does a wonderful job at putting it in perspective. This is Gautam Raghunath. He's a co-founder of Talented. Talented is a creative agency that I'm a part of. There's this moment of hesitation before I share any work publicly. Like there exists this unnecessary tension between my work and personal authenticity. Why do they feel like they stand in opposition? I'm frequently doing invisible mental tallies, second guessing if I'm tipping too far into becoming the person who only talks about work. Is this getting too spammy? So each one of us, if you've gone through a feeling of, am I putting myself too out there? Am I feeling like a sellout? Is this like too much in terms of like, me claiming credit for something that I did? I hope that this talk sort of unclogs some parts of your brains. I want us to examine this together. First of all, let's talk about where we are, the media landscape, and where the world has gotten to. Fame used to be a very rare privilege. Is that correct? There was a time when fame was a very, very rare privilege. Fame meant that if fame was the territory of rock stars and film actors and world leaders. By the late 90s, there was a new word that we all started hearing, personal brand. And even in the late 90s, personal brand was a novel term. Today, it is an absolute expectation. If I have to put this further in perspective, I would almost go so far to say that success no longer differentiates us, success standardizes us. Everyone is some sort of successful today. There was a point when, oh, X is famous. Today, if you have to look at a crop of micro influencers and creators, and someone who has a Substack, and someone who puts them out through a content IP, and someone whose builds a body of work but builds a reel behind every single piece of work that they do to talk about it and creates content for their work as a personal brand. All of this goes to show that it's almost become an expectation. And there is a very interesting term for it. It's called the baseline fame phenomenon. What is baseline fame? It's fine if all of us are not 500 million famous. There's a level of baseline fame that everyone needs to have. That part is the standardization that's almost become like your new college degree. So it's not enough that you have a college degree. You almost come in and you're like, hey, yeah, and I create content or I have this IP or I have X or Y, which I find very interesting about this time. So if you're an author, it's not enough that you have a manuscript. You also need an audience. Look at the number of authors who talk about, hey, I went to a publisher and you know what? they all wanted to know what was my audience size. If you're a designer, just your work does not define you. It's also your ability to share it. And therefore, there's a very palpable tension in the world that we've all inhabited. If fame is a college degree, participating in self-promotion is no more optional. Think about your parents, think about the generations before them. Maybe participating and doing self-promotion, maybe some of us came from families that were good at it. A lot of us came from, especially if you come from an Indian middle-class family, then that wasn't like so much of a mainstay. But we've also reached a point of time where self-promotion is not something that you can choose to do or choose not to do. Self-promotion is something that you have to do the job and the PR around the job. That is simply a product of the baseline fame phenomenon, the media landscape right now, and what it takes. And if fame used to be a rare luxury, and if today it is an ordinary necessity, I think this palpable tension exists because there was a time when this was unfashionable. Think about all the times you grew up in and put that in perspective. For a lot of us, especially if you're a millennial, the idea of self-promotion can almost feel off, a sense that you are selling out. So I find this quote by Chuck Klosterman very interesting because he once wrote, right, selling out is not about getting rich. It's about reshaping your work to make it palatable to a broader, less discerning audience. What does that mean? You were anyway doing something. Maybe you were creating ad, or you were making a design, or you wrote really wonderful long form copy for something, but you wrote it for a certain kind of intellect and aesthetic. And now suddenly you want to reach more and more people, and you want your click to be wider and wider. And when you do that, you try to add a couple of things. You make it rhyme, you add a trope, you try to make it more commercial. And the moment you start to do that, of course it gets you more eyeballs, but it also feels like you're selling out a little bit. And that's the friction we feel when we put ourselves out there. But if the energy has to change around self promotion, this tension between self promotion and cringe needs to reduce. I want to talk to a few people, and I want to take like 5 minutes, and I'd love for all of y'all to like just talk about this. Have you all ever faced like, damn it, if I put myself out there a little more, it would be easier? Or I don't know why I'm not putting myself out there. Can I hear? Achyut, I see you nodding.
Yes, ma'am, it's quite normal. It happens many times with me before and after of the incident.
Tell me a little more about your experience.
While I was presenting my presentation in my post graduation, and while that I thought that I should be more vocal or more of arranging the flow. And while just I ended my presentation, I got a feeling that I should do more or more proactively without sounding it cringe.
Got it. Anyone else? Shreya, how are you with self promotion? Do you put yourself out there?
Uh, Ma'am, I take many too much inspiration from LinkedIn, from others' posts, and then I try to build something around that, but with my own opinions related to marketing or branding. But still, I feel that there could be something more that I could have done to make this more visible to the audience.
Got it. Meet.
Ma'am, I think I probably am pretty bad at self-promotion. I come from a school of thought that says that let your work do the talking rather than you doing the talking. So I would want it that way, where my work is top notch, that it is doing majority of the talking rather than me yapping about it.
Got it. That's a wonderful school of thought, and I feel like most of all, like I started my career with exactly that. That let your work do the talking. That is more than enough. I feel we've come to a point more and more that there is a realization, and this is a very hot contrary take. But I would almost go so far to say that it is not enough. And I think a lot of people who say that, And I think it's wonderful because we all grew up with that school of thought. And it's so ingrained in our minds that let your work do the talking. And I don't mean self. And I think the reason why we don't like self promotion almost as a generation is because we feel like we grew up with the sense that let the work do the talking. And if you have to yap about it and if you have to put yourself out, you're either a loudmouth or you're hungry for credit or you're desperate or you're a sellout. So I think we attach a lot of labels to the idea of self promotion. And I think that is something I would like to kill today because I feel like there is a lot, and that is what it feels that's not personally authentic, right? Meet as a person believes that the work should carry itself. So when Veet talks about his work, he feels like either the work wasn't good enough, that's why I have to do it, or there is a sense of I'm being desperate, I'm just being hungry for attention, all of that baggage. I feel like there is a way to talk about what we do because I feel advertising needs more and more young minds and marketing needs more young minds. And the onus is on us on how interesting we make this industry feel. And I feel like when we don't talk about the work, we lose out on that wonderful flywheel of getting more people in and keeping this like a very thriving. I feel like there's a very practical role that talking about our work in a way that feels personally authentic to us does. So, what I want to talk about is how can we change the energy around self promotion? And I feel the biggest ways in which we could do that is reduce the taste gap between what you'd be obsessed with. So, talented as an agency, the moment we put any piece of work out, typically there will be at least 95 people from our floor who share it. And I find that very interesting because across agencies, I think creative directors and founders really have to push people saying that share this on your platforms. Why doesn't any organization with 3,000 people just have its work shared with every single employee? I feel that is primarily because people don't feel like one, it is their work, or two, that there was some sort of their own personal taste involved in doing it. But what is something that we all share? I think anything that you share and look at your own personal feeds and look at the personal feeds of your families and your relatives, sharing something basically is the equivalent of signaling what you believe. It's just a personal signal. Mihika, I think you need to go on mute. Thanks. So if I'm the kind of person who has an opinion about gender, and if I have an opinion about like certain kind of laws in the country, and I have an opinion about fashion, chances are everything that I share will try to show you my value system, and my entire feed is going to be about representing that value system. Similarly, Meet is more likely to share something that represents his value system. I think all of us need to create work that does a very good job of making us feel like, hey, this is so in sync with my own values, either about life or my own taste when it comes to writing or design or strategy or business or where the country needs to be, and so closely held with my opinions and my worldview. Even if someone else had to make this, I would share it. I made it, I most certainly do. I think the goal is to create more and more work that we want to talk about ourselves that is actually a great mirror for our value system. So, how do you do this? The first part, and I'm going to talk to us about 3 points roughly over here. The first one, and I want us to like make notes if you can, is a concept called transactional analysis. I'd love to see more people video on again. Maharishi, Midhu, Nimesh, Milan, Rahul. I'd love to see your faces. Wonderful. The first term that we are going to talk about is transactional analysis. How many of us here go to therapy? Just raise your hand or unmute. If you're comfortable sharing, of course. If you've had a therapy sesh, I can see a couple of people. Any other folks? Okay. So I think one of the first, I've gone for leadership coaching. I find going to therapy once a week and generally talking about everything on my mind to be very helpful. I think one very interesting concept in psychology is called transactional analysis. What is transactional analysis? It basically says that any conversation you have, even if it's a conversation with you and your manager where you say, I was late, I'm sorry, I'm late, is a transaction. And within each one of us, there are three voices. There's the voice of the child, the voice of the adult, and the voice of the parent. Now I'm going to talk to you, do a 10-second almost crash course in each of these voices. The voice of the child is not the childish voice, so there's no judgment over here. But the voice of the child is basically the voice that does not care about social rules and social norms and any of those things. So, if you have like a meltdown because you're very angry, or if you have like, I don't want to talk to this person, I'm going to cold shoulder them. Or if you have like, at this point of time, I feel so happy, I want to dance on this table, and you just give into that impulse, that comes from the child. The child will cry profusely, be angry, throw a tantrum, have a fit, and really feel every emotion. Of course, now the child is like the feeling center. The child is also very important for creativity. So, people who are very, very creative typically also have a very strong child they've been able to keep alive. Why? Because this is the part of you that does not care about rules, it doesn't care about being boxed in. Then there's the voice of the adult. The adult concerns itself with only one question: what is the situation and what does it need from me right now? So it could be a situation where, like, your closest friend is not talking to you. Now, the child might say that if you're not talking to me, I'm not going to talk to you either. The adult will be, what is the situation and what does it need from me right now? Does this person need a little extra care, a little extra attention? Let me give that to them. The adult would always ask, what does the situation need from me right now? The third one is the voice of the parent, and it's typically called the critical parent. Now, it's not the voice of your critical parent, it is the voice of any authority figure in your life: teachers, headmistress, parents, managers, early bosses, capitalism, all of the role models that you look at, all of their voice, anyone who's had authority over you, becomes the voice of the critical parent. In South Asia, especially in India, I think we grew up with a lot of authority figures, and there are a lot of people like the voice in our heads. A lot of times can be a very critical voice, that this is your ceiling, you may not be able to do this, or this is not good enough. All of these voices are typically the voice of the critical parent. Something that I find very, very helpful with my team, and it doesn't matter whether you're a manager or you're just starting off your career, ask yourself whose voice it is, and try to do this check with you as soon as you can. If you hear really poor feedback and you're having a very emotional response, ask yourself, whose voice is it? Is this the voice of the child, or what would the adult say? If tomorrow you go for a job interview and you get rejected and you have a strong like emotional reaction to it, ask yourself, whose voice is it? Is it the voice of the critical parent? What would the adult in me say? A lot of folks in my team, when I introduced them to this, said that, you know what, Vinny, I'm going to name my critical parent, the critical voice, and I'm going to give it a name and I'm going to tell it to shut up. And I feel that is very important because it changes what we believe we can achieve. I'm going to show you a piece of work that I feel does a wonderful job of just generally talking about this, the voice of this critical parent and what it could mean for us. I'm going to share my screen in just a second. Is everyone with me so far?
Yes.
Super. I'm having a 1 second tech issue. I'm just going to find. So the piece of work I really wanted to show you has a bit of an issue. So I'm going to show you another version of it. But do we know Avni Lekhra? How many of us know Avni Lekhra? I've heard of her.
Yeah, the Paralympic gold medalist.
She's a Paralympic gold medalist. And very interestingly for Britannia, we had the opportunity of partnering with her. We created something called Avni Gold, which was a version of the Mari Gold. The story of it is very interesting. I think Mari Gold for decades has spoken to homemakers. And they felt that they had an opportunity to go a step forward and actually represent women in sports. After the Paralympic Games, someone in the team had a wonderful observation. The size of the target in the Paralympic Games is actually smaller than a marigold biscuit. And we were like, what if we could come together and actually create a new marigold biscuit in the exact size of the target? And what if it could carry all of the bullet marks and and each time you have a Mari, you realize that this was how small the target was, and this is where she hit every bullet. And we felt what a wonderful way for little girls, for families, for little boys to all come together and understand Paralympics as a sport through something that is around us every single day, a Mari. And we said Mari Gold presents Avni's Gold. I spoke to you about the parent, child, adult, primarily because Avni Lekhara, when we met her on set, very interestingly, up until 10 years of age, was perfectly mobile. And then she went through an accident that changed her life. And in so many ways, she speaks about that moment with so much gratitude because she says that everything that I have achieved, from a world Paralympian champion 2 times over, a record holder, and the influence that I have, happened because of this. And such a big part of that journey involved freeing herself from the critical voice. She's like, at the moment the accident happened, there was a sense of it is over now. There is nothing I will achieve at this point, until she was enrolled by her family. And she was like, I couldn't even carry the rifle because the rifle is heavy. So I didn't see where this was going until she was like, I started enjoying it, which is the state of the child, and then freeing yourself, which is the critical parent within you. I will send you the case study at some point of time for sure. But until then, I'd like you to watch this video.
30th अगस्त 2024 को अवनी लेखरा ने पेरिस में भारत के लिए गोल्ड मेडल जीता।
थैंक्स। और आप?
ओह, ह्यूज फैन।
नाइस। फिर तो आपको पता होगा मैंने किसमें गोल्ड जीता।
ऑफ कोर्स, एयर राइफल शूटिंग।
एंड एयर राइफल शूटिंग में सबसे ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट क्या है?
एयर।
इट्स ब्रीथिंग। जब मैं सांस अंदर लेती हूँ और जब and then a perfect shot.
Wow, ooh, nice nails.
Thanks. पता है मेरा टारगेट कितना दूर था?
10 मीटर दूर।
Impressive. और वो कितना छोटा था?
बास्केटबॉल हुप से छोटा।
स्नूकर पॉकेट से भी छोटा।
गोल्फ होल से भी छोटा।
एक मारी बिस्किट से भी छोटा।
Introducing Mari Gold, Avni Lekhra's special edition. आपका Mari Gold, shaped exactly to the size of Avni's target. हर बिस्किट पे लगी है अवनी के हिस्टोरिक विनिंग शॉट्स की निशानी फ्रॉम पेरिस 2024।
वाओ।
अगर आप अब तक अवनी का निशाना नहीं जानते थे,
well now you know.
Order the special edition pack on Swiggy Instamart and celebrate Avni Lekhra.
It's one of those pieces that immediately had Britannia see one of its biggest opens. Like, Britannia had never seen an open this big for anything that they had done before this, which I find very, very interesting about the entire piece. Any questions about how we made this? Any questions on anyone's mind on how this was made? Feel free to ask me right now. There's a lot more for us to go over as well.
I think in the Q&A we'll kind of come back to this.
All right. Okay. I'm going to go back to where we were. So again, one of your biggest takeaways, I hope, could be that keep the awareness of whose voice it is when you speak. Is it the voice of the child? Is it the voice of the parent? Is it the voice of the critical parent? And ask yourself, what would the adult say in this situation? I think the second awareness is a lot of times, do you see awareness number 2 on your screen? Okay. I think
Yes.
it's the fact that a lot of times our modesty and fear gets in the way of us truly believing the impact we can have on the world. Like, it is Sandeep, your modesty, and Shreya, and Rahul, and Raj, each one of there is a certain sense of recalibrating what is the actual impact you can have in the world. I think somewhere we hold ourselves back because it can almost feel presumptuous to believe that we are the most original thinkers of our generation. To believe that we can create as much of a dent as our heroes. I want each one of you to think about who is someone you look up to and you feel like, oh, this person is really my role model or this person is really my hero. I'd like you to do one simple thing from today onwards, which is reframe your heroes as your competition. If you feel like, holy F, this person is someone I really look up to, my only provocation to you would be, what would happen if you saw this person not as your hero but your competition? When we started Talented Off, we first started off in year 1 with a lot of agencies that we felt like, hey, that's the level of work we want to create. It was Uncommon, London, Mother, Gut, Miami especially. And then by year 2, we were like, hey, what if they weren't just agencies we looked up to? What if each one of them were actually our competition? And I think that changes the way in which you push yourself, the kind of work you create. It creates a very different standard for you. And I think that led to something very, very interesting. The first thing it does is it ensures that you don't alienate yourself from your values. Where does alienation of values begin? It's someone saying, turns out my dignity online has a price. That price is $80,000. I'm 100% good with that price. In our world, that could mean a client saying that, yes, I know this is so much, this retainer is so much money, give me what I want. And you say, okay, fine. This person is paying me, just give it and get it done with. If you're a brand manager, it could be that someone in the C-suite says that, I understand, but I feel this is what will work. When you disagree, I think it is so important for us to find middle grounds, find interesting ways to negotiate so that we don't alienate ourselves from our values. Because the moment you alienate yourself from your value, you will alienate yourself from your audience. If people wanted avant-garde, we'd give it to them, but they want dumb shit, so here is the dumb shit. I think it is important for us to treat our audiences as people with taste, to understand, even if we believe that something is cringe or so on and so forth, that it is an aesthetic in itself. And there is a way in which that aesthetic can be valued and we can understand it better and we can go deep in it. When I started off with the question around reframe your heroes into your competition, the best way for you to do that is stay very close to your value system and stay very close to your audience. And if you can actually say that, no, if this is an audience that even enjoys cat memes, I'm going to go deep into understanding that a little better and see what I create. I feel we will be much better at actually beating and getting ahead of our heroes. I want to play a piece of work that is amongst my favorites at Talented. And I think this is the first piece of work we looked and said that, hey, I feel like this could come out of Uncommon. And an agency that started off as a role model almost started feeling like, hey, we could be their biggest threat at some point of time globally. Play the work for you. It was interesting because it started off with a very simple insight, and that insight was that in most cities, trees block billboards, and there's a lot of illegal felling of trees. The trees are routinely chopped for billboard visibility. It is a city infrastructure problem. And we felt that if we are doing a sustainability campaign, can we do a sustainability campaign in a way that it actually feels like it is the most sustainable expression as well? And therefore, the idea was, instead of chopping trees, can we chop billboards in the shape of trees? So what we had were amoeba-like billboards. They were all chopped off. They were all very interesting patterns that went up with one simple message: nature shapes Britannia. It's interesting because if at this point of time, there's no media inventory for billboards blocked by trees. So it was a boots on the ground energy with people saying that, hey, I saw a billboard over here and it's not chopped by a tree yet. And actually building this media inventory from scratch that is available for brands that want to be more planet friendly to take these sites. The second meant that we had a lot of parameters. What is the proximity to the tree? We want the foliage to cover at least 40% of the tree. All of that sort of came together. And then there was a sense of the actual mounting because something like this hadn't been done. So imagine this little scrap that we called a billboard now had to be held across wind and so on and so forth, which involved its own innovation on ground. But doing this, I don't think we would have pulled this off as a piece of work if there wasn't a reframe of, I actually want to beat my heroes right now. Ask yourself the same question and see where that takes you. And now I'm going to go on to what I will say is the third awareness, which is everything good we bring to the planet and get to contribute here relies on us knowing who we are and then acting out of that knowledge. As creative people, we all make a ton of creative decisions every single day. And I would push you to show up with your own hidden agenda. Are you someone who believes that people who speak in English or the language shouldn't matter? The world belongs too much to people who are English articulate. It needs to start, people who are fluent in vernacular languages should not feel like this is something that is their ceiling. Start showing up and writing characters and pitching for things that allows vernacular characters to take the main stage. Are you someone who believes that, you know what, age does not matter? We are living in times when it's not like people need to wait for very, very long tenures to do epic shit. Double down on that as a very prominent voice in the work that you create. Are you someone who believes and saw women in your house having a really hard time? Write stories around that. See what is important to you. Were you teased and bullied for something as a child that you feel like, hey, this is actually my villain's arc? Find a way to represent that, normalize that, positivize that. That, I believe, can be each one of our hidden agenda. It's almost like this magic pixie dust that you get to sprinkle on your work. And because you believe in that, it becomes yours and it becomes a very, very authentic expression that almost no one can replicate. Ask yourself, how do you feel when you see yourself from the lens of others? Do they see you as too shy? Do they see you as someone who's not that impressive in the first impression? Have you felt like being a vernacular speaker got in your way? Did you feel like you had to, almost hide certain parts? What are those parts that you go through as part of your own lived experience? Bring that to the main stage. I feel one of the pieces of work that I'd love to talk about is Unfiltered History Tour. I'm someone who is part Sindhi. I grew up with my grandparents telling me a lot of stories of the partition. And one of the biggest takeaways was that there is so many ways in which we are still so colonialized. If we feel like English is the more superior language, if we eat a certain way, all of that is the baggage of our old colonialism. And then someone came up with an idea and said that what if we could actually break into the British Museum, scan every artifact that they have stolen from us, and actually hear the narrative, not from the perspective of someone who was white or someone from the museum, but the actual people and the actual natives of the countries these artifacts belong to. This meant that we got to profile and speak to people from Easter Island and Rapa Nui, people from Egypt, India, and so on. Australia with the Aboriginal Australians. One of them was a seventh descendant of the Gweagal Shield itself, and hear their stories firsthand. And through Instagram filters, the same filter that allow you to put cat ears and whiskers, you can still go to the British Museum, scan any artifact, and hear what the native of the country would say about how it was stolen. I'm going to play that for you.
The British Museum is a public institution dedicated to human history, art and culture. Come discover over 80,000 works from around the world, here in London. You are now viewing the Gweagal Shield. Captain James Cook was a British...
We're now looking at the Gweagal Shield, which was taken from my people.
Collections in the British museums are premised on a simple idea. I'm proud of what my grandfather stole from yours.
How these objects are treated is our decision. Even if we can't look after them, that's our choice. It's not the British Museum's choice.
How do you loan to me what is mine?
You are saying to me, we are not knowledgeable enough to teach people about our history and our culture.
If they started giving back stuff, they really just have empty halls there.
We're now looking at the Gweagal Shield.
The Rosetta Stone. Looking at Hoahagananaya.
And despite everything that I've spoken to you about so far, I would like to say that even after you understand whose voice it is, identify the critical parent within you and tell it to shut up, and you get better at sort of asking yourself, what would the adults say in the situation? Even when you reframe your competition as your heroes, and even when you understand ways in which you want to bring parts of yourself, especially parts that have felt vindicated in the past, to the main stage, creative work will still feel like a struggle. I'm going to end with Paul Graham because he says that work feeling like a struggle is no more a bad sign than it is to be out of breath while running. Learn to distinguish good pain from bad pain. Good pain is a sign of effort. Bad pain is a sign of damage. So, despite everything that we do, things are still going to feel like a struggle, but that's absolutely fine. Indulge in the good pain. It feels like a workout because it's strengthening all the muscles within you to create more. And now we are open for questions.
Okay, this was, I think, a very, very brilliant session, completely on a very different level that you took this entire thing. Guys, you can unmute, ask question. If you're too shy and you're still not very confident that you want to openly kind of come out and ask, you can still put it in the chat. But that's not the agenda of today's session. So yes, you could unmute and ask.
I actually have a question from Anusha in my message box, which is a direct message where I believe you're talking about Nature Shapes Britannia, Anusha.
Yes, I'm talking about the same.
So her question is, always wondered how you guys came up with the concept. I think it started with, very interestingly, the story of Britannia and Talented is that when Talented was 10 days old, and I'm saying that this is our 10th day as an agency, Britannia, 140-year-old legacy, decided to get us on board. And I think they reacted to a lot of the intangibles, which is they felt that a really huge legacy could do with really entrepreneurial young startup energy. And one of the early bets that we made was that sustainability is going to be a very big conversation for you, especially now, of course, but also in the years to come as a preference driver. And he said we need to find more and more interesting ways to talk about it. I think right from the get-go, something that we knew was that if you don't make a campaign about sustainability and contribute like 50 million tons of plastic and waste in the world because you wanted to talk about your sustainability initiative, because that feels so counterintuitive. So we're like, can we have a sustainable expression? And just around the time, I think there was a protest in Bangalore for the because trees were being cut. This was right during the festive period. So typically around September, a lot of trees get chopped illegally because everyone who holds a billboard inventory wants to sell them. And there was a protest in Cubbon Park in Bangalore. And it felt like, hey, this actually feels like an opportunity. What if we can actually create billboards that respond to trees and are shaped by trees? What if the tree could be the art director? And you're chopping the billboard almost in response to that tree, right? That is the beginning of it. And then, of course, if there was something to be innovated and like a new curveball every step of the way, but there was a full team that wanted to make it happen.
Like really nice. Thank you so much for answering this query. And I've been a big fan of your work and of Talented Agency. I've been following you guys since long, probably since the very beginning. Being associated with Gotham as well and the other Aditya, I guess. Yes. So very
Wonderful.
rigorously following you guys on LinkedIn and have been like great fan of your work. Great. Thank you.
Wonderful to hear.
Okay, while other people gather their questions, I have something to ask you, Binaifer. The campaign that you've done around Tanesh, which was about progressive womanhood, you spoke about caste discrimination in urban company, sustainability in a way through Britannia. How do these kind of of course, inspirations come around? What kind of keeps you inspired for this? And more importantly, uh, do you think every campaign from a lens saying that, okay, if we talk about this, we can take it to a Cannes? Or do you just want to kind of create a impact in a rigid social thought process? How does that work?
I don't think you can imagine the award impact of any idea before you do it. Like before you start a campaign, unless like that is the only agenda with it, which has not been the case in anything we've done so far. There's always a sense of a problem you want to solve. With Urban Company, all of the initiatives around, like all of the conversations around caste or gender and ethnicity started off because for the first 10 years, Urban Company chased number-driven growth. And then we felt like, hey, this brand, there are so many Me Too's that are going to be out in the world. What is the core of the brand? What is the mission statement? Because that is what will hold you. And we felt that in India, caste is a 3,000-year-old feudal system that determines what someone will do. For most folks who perhaps belong to lower castes, the surname determines their profession. And this is a 3,000-year-old system, and Urban Company is a response to that because it is taking a lot of caste-based professions, be it plumbing or bathroom cleaning or the work of an electrician, and it's saying that no, this is a skill-based job. You learn the skill, you earn the technical mastery of it, and then you get paid a fair wage for it. And we are the ones who are going to organize this. So we felt the only way in which we can do this is we need to start telling stories around dignity of labor, because this needs to be seen as a skill. This doesn't need to be seen as a profession that is just simply passed down. There is someone who's truly interested and truly competent and a professional at this. And that is how the body of work around Urban Company started, right? Similarly, for Britannia, for a brand that is 140 years old, we felt like Britannia and a few people who are nonagenarians in this country have seen India's entire trajectory from a third world nation, the way we've always looked at the West, to where we are today. So can Britannia come together with almost its own generation, nonagenarians, to retell the story through the entire suite of Britannia? So it typically just starts with what is important to the brand as a pillar to speak about, what is the freshest way in which we could possibly do that. And then from that moment, awards are a great like cherry on the cake if it comes your way, but the objectives that it solves for are far greater. in my opinion.
Understood.
Shreya, I think you had your hand raised.
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to say that like working with giants like Britannia, who have already done so many campaigns around every generation, almost, if we can say, how do we come up with everything that is relevant to the current generation? Like, how is that thought coming out?
Like how do you take a legacy brand and make it relevant for a current generation is what you
Current
said.
generation, yeah.
I think like one is there's a reason why the core of the brand is what it is. So Marigold has stood for women for very, very long. And I think the early 80s, 90s representation of Mari spoke more to homemakers, and they continue to do that. But over time, the expression changed. They realized that there were more and more women who actually felt like they a life stage led to them becoming homemakers. Maybe motherhood meant that they had to take a career gap. And Mari started the Mari startup context. That all, if you have a great business idea, record it, send it over to us on WhatsApp. It's as and they removed all the entry barriers. And if we believe you actually have a true idea, we will fund it. And generation after, like there are 10 women every single year who get a 10 lakh seeding for that. Now that speaks to a younger generation and a woman today who feels that, hey, my identity, I want to be a multi hyphenate. My identity will not just be this one thing. I want to be a multi hyphenate. Similarly, the step around that, hey, let's start speaking about women in sports, because that feels like, why should women only be represented within like the idea of home or starting something from within the home, and bringing Avni, which is again like it's also intersectional feminism in the way, right? Women, like, we need to be able to talk about gender in all sorts of ways, came from there. So when you talk about how do you speak to the current generation, where is the zeitgeist at? What is this cohort thinking about? What are parts and identity markers that we see around us, and how can the brand play a meaningful role? I think those are the parts that come into play.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Got so much insights from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bring meat
Yes,
and
there are two meats.
yeah. Meat.
Hi. Okay, so I have a very a different question. I think a lot of emerging brands into D2C category and a very direct sales driven marketing activities wherein their reports are being judged on the ROI and ROAS basis. Do you think such kind of activities are still making more sense for such brands? Since I think there are more, a lot of D2C brands are emerging these days.
No, you make an
And I doubt
excellent
they have a louder budget like having such activations or having such personality on their brand as well.
You make an absolutely excellent point, and I feel like at this point of time there are two, like, two factions of creative that speak to like that almost don't respect each other. Like one is this entire thing that speaks that, oh, these narratives matter, and like, building brand on the back of like value systems and so on and so forth, and the other that believes that no, we've reached a point where there is anyway a lot of noise. You need to capture attention right now, and you need to capture attention in a way that it leads to sales immediately. Especially for a brand today, we see more brands that, hey, you know what, I have 10 CR for the entire year. What do I do with this
True.
money? And I feel like it is also a function of a brand stage. Would I say that every single brand should start out with saying that what is my value system and how do I go? Absolutely not. I do believe that for a lot of thought leaders, what does value system and branding like this do? It allows you to charge a premium. That is simply the thing,
True.
right? When there are so many Me Too's out there, if you speak to me on the back of a value system that I also resonate with, what it allows you to do is, one is you're always top of mind. Two is it allows you to charge a premium because I feel like, hey, there is something more to this brand. Is it possible for every startup out there to do this? Absolutely not. Like there is a certain sense of crossing over that stage and then coming to what is my value system, and there are smarter, easier ways of doing that doesn't mean a 2 crore production budget. So I'm fully with you as far as that is concerned, but I do feel it has a lot to do with the brand stage. Urban Company, for that matter, for many years did do exactly what you're saying, right? I don't have time
Yeah.
for this. What I need to talk about is my services, deliver that really well, win on the back of great distribution, and like, this is a very broken, unorganized sector. I need to organize it. And then there came a point 10 years in when they were ready to launch their IPO, and they realized that, hey, there are so many Me Too's out there that can easily take market share from me on the back of deep discounting. What do I do now? How do I keep my thought leadership? I need to have a narrative that elevates me. So these decisions are as much like serve a business function as they do a greater for good, greater for
True.
society sort of function.
This came from the recent brand, which is Blee Blah Blue. I think in 6 month or 8 month span of time, they reached to the bigger number, despite of doing the louder marketing activities, just the ROAS game. And these are the examples by the clients ki yaar iski kya zarurat hai.
Correct. And I think it really comes down to the fact that where you are. Like a lot of
True.
large organizations find themselves structurally incapable of moving at the speed, the like, really quick startups, like the way they move. Really large organizations struggle at doing that and really being present in those times. And therefore, building it on the back of value systems, etc., feels like a slower way for me to keep acting like that thought leader, keep capturing mind share every now and then. Whereas only like Indie Wild, again, fantastic example, right? Of a brand that just entered distribution, influencer marketing. What does conversion and consideration for me look like, and get conversions? So I do feel like at this point of time, there are two factions that don't respect each other, that exist very much. But I do feel more and more that they need to start speaking to each other, because I don't think you can build a very, very successful brand without one.
I agree. Thank you so much.
Meet?
Yes, ma'am. So I have a couple of short questions. The first being around transactional analysis, where we talked about three states, ego states basically, parent, adult, and child. And from what I understood was that whenever, like, we need to introspect and identify which voice is it coming from. Is it the parent being dominating, or is it the child being dominated? And then reframe it to the sort of the adult voice. Now, my question being, the parent voice and child voice also have their own strengths, which perhaps the adult voice might or might not have. So, in that case, how does one identify which way to go towards? Because parent also has being nurturers in nature, child being creative in nature, so they also have their own strengths. So in that scenario, what is the way forward? And question number two, a short one, being for a junior copywriter working in Ahmedabad, what is that skill set do you think one needs to have to get into talented agency?
I think on the first one, it's just the awareness that matters. It doesn't like, it's not to say that one is better than the other. A lot of times at work, it helps. If you're in a leadership position, it helps to know what would the adults say, most certainly. But I think the awareness of, okay, this could be this one's voice is just enough for you to recalibrate and understand where you're coming from. It ensures that you don't let any emotion like leak into decisions that you're making. With on the second one, your body of work, man. Build a sexy body of work. Write into us. I will share with Ritam our talent pipeline. Love to have wonderful folks from Ahmedabad sort of join us.
Thank you very much.
And if you go to a talented website, there's an entire Notion link, which has some of the most brilliant documentation of everything that I've seen in ed space. I'll just drop that link here. It also
Thank
has.
you so much, Ritam.
Dave, we'll just take the last question and we'll wrap it up. Dave, you could ask across.
Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
I have a simple question. I am currently pursuing my master's degree, and during one of the marketing classes, I came across the campaigns by Tanish. It's about the remarriage campaign. So my question is simple: that how a legacy brand respond to such a backlash, and how do damage control takes the place further?
You, which ad are you talking about by Tanish?
Remarriage campaign, actually.
So you're saying that Tanish did the remarriage campaign. What's your question?
Yes.
No, what is the question?
Oh, okay. It's that how that damage control done by the brand, and what's the first response to that backlash?
So you're talking about when a brand puts out an ad like remarriage that feels like it's a modern concept that also has a lot of people on the internet, like it leading to some sort of backlash. How does the brand sort of come in and do damage control, right? I feel like each time, have you seen, I'll give you an example that's an international example that will help like make this point really well. Have you seen what Nike did with Kaepernick? In America, you again had like the Trump regime, and Nike felt that its brand value is being eroded because Nike is not seen as a brand by some people who have a value system. Everyone wears a Nike. And any brand that becomes like one everyone sort of brand loses something just in terms of cultural relevance and zeitgeist. And when Kaepernick, during one of the matches, he's a player, he took the knee when the anthem played. And the moment he did that, everyone started burning. Everyone, like, there was outrage against this player. Nike immediately onboarded him. So imagine a player that took the knee when the anthem is playing, showing disrespect to your own national anthem because of the state of the country. Nike onboards him as an ambassador. What followed was a lot of Republicans burning Nike shoes. And like the stock also like fell by a bit. But what it did wonderfully was later, there is not a single person who believes in like the Democrats or a liberal point of view who does not believe Nike is their brand. And it got back into heat, momentum, trust, cultural relevance immediately because of that move. Similarly, for Tanish, if there are factions that like will say that this wasn't the correct move or so on and so forth, you will also have a lot of people who believe this is the correct value system, stand for the brand. And that creates a very different kind of advocacy. And I feel like that kind of advocacy is more sustainable in the long run.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Binaifer, for today's talk. I think it was a fantastic 1 hour that we had. So much to learn and a different perspective that you kind of opened for most of us across. What I'll also do is I have compiled a couple of links of your work that I'll share across with everyone over the email today. And yes, in case anyone wants to reach out, she has a beautiful website where you can find her email. You could go on her Instagram and LinkedIn and you could be in touch with her. And you're looking to kind of work with her, of course, that's the best way to be there.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. Have a wonderful
Thank you, Binaifer. Thank you for this enriching and engaging session. And many years back, I've attended one of your Economic Times masterclass. And from that day, I decided that once I should bring you to Ahmedabad also. And there was another reason that you have to give back to Ahmedabad because you studied from Ahmedabad. So that was the reason we wanted to have you here. Thank you so much on behalf of Brand Club. We would like to have you once again in the coming days and have a elaborated full day workshop with you, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, you can stay with us. We are entering the next session. Yeah.